Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies, movie news, all sorts of good stuff. And we're flying solo today. Normally here on Tuesdays, we'd have Robert Meyer Burnett joining me. He got a hold of me last night. He had a gig he had to take care of. So it's just going to be you and me talking about our favorite things. A lot of stuff to cover here today, too, guys. As a matter of fact, we're going to be talking a little bit about Gotham PD. We're going to be talking about Spike Lee's new movie that involves Viagra. I'm not kidding. Cinemark and Universal have reached a deal. Why that's going to be the end of movie theaters as we know it. That and a few things more. But before we get into all the stuff, guys, I want to remind you, if you're new around here and you haven't done so already, why don't you take a second and click on that subscribe button, become a subscriber to the John Campea YouTube channel, and keep you up to date on all the stuff that we've got going on around here. And that would be greatly appreciated. Also, just so you guys know, we're going to break the show up into two halves. First half, we're going to talk about a bunch of topics we got lined up. And then in the second half of the show, we're going to take your live comments and questions. Now, how do you get a live comment or question on the show? Really simple. Just go to the tip link that's at the top of the description of the video here that you see, or you can enter it in manually, streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your comment or question on the show if it's reasonable. And of course, you'll be supporting the show at the same time. And all of us here, thank you guys very, very much for that. Now, before we get into our main topics today, we got a couple things off the top to discuss. And the first thing we're going to go with here is this. Now, with the new Batman movie coming from Warner Brothers and Matt Reeves, one of the things that they announced not terribly long ago was that they were going to have a spin-off TV series called Gotham PD. Not to be mistaken with the Fox show Gotham, which I didn't like very much. But rather, this was going to be Gotham PD that was going to focus on the crime within Gotham City. It wasn't going to be a Batman show, but it was going to be in the same universe as the new Batman movie that Matt Reeves was doing, and Matt Reeves, as a matter of fact, was going to be an executive producer. One of the really exciting things about this Gotham PD was the fact that a guy by the name of Terence Winter was going to be the showrunner and main writer for it. Well, they haven't even shot anything yet, and they've already lost their showrunner. Terence Winter has departed the show. This is coming to us from Variety, who writes, HBO Max and Warner Brothers Television are going to have to find someone else to preside over Gotham PD. Terence Winter, who was in line to write and showrun, he was going to be the head honcho of this thing, of the forthcoming spin-off series of Matt Reeves' The Batman feature, has exited the project over, dun dun dun, creative differences. Variety has confirmed. News of his departure comes 5 months after the show was handed a straight-to-series order at HBO Max. It also comes less than 24 hours after another Winter project came out of the woodwork in the form of Dial M for Murder, anthology series starring Alicia Vikander. So, Terence Winter is gone. There's two things about this that really bother me. There are 2 points of fact here that really quite bother me about this. Number one, this whole creative differences thing is irritating as hell. Look, I understand it will happen once in a while, but it seems to me that before you hire a guy and before you announce to the world that this individual is going to be running this show, that we've got this show coming and this guy is going to be the head of it, this guy is going to be the one steering the ship, and you announce that to the world, before you do that, it just seems like maybe you would want to take a beat and make sure that you and that, whether it's in the movies, a director, or in television, the showrunner, it just seems to make sense to me that if you're the network or the studio or whatever, I don't know, call me crazy, maybe you'd want to make sure 100% that you and this creative person are already on the same page. That before you hire them and before you announce to the world that this guy's doing this, that he has already communicated to you what it is he wants to do with the show. And you have already communicated to him what it is you want your show to be. And that you've come to a firm understanding. You each know where each side is coming from. And then you announce to the world that we're doing this show and this is our guy doing it. That's when you make the announcement. It is incredible to me how much over the past number of years we have seen these creative differences, separations before a movie or a TV show even starts filming. Like, I get it. If you've been working on a show for a couple of years, you may develop creative differences and want to depart. I get that. But the amount of times, the last 5 years, that we have seen movies and TV shows lose their showrunners and directors prior to even shooting due to creative differences, it's astounding to me. It's like, who's not doing their job? Who's not doing their job of making sure, hey, are we on the same page? I don't know. Okay, let's just tell everybody you're doing it and we'll work that out later. Like, is that what they're doing? I don't get that. So that's the one thing that bothers me about this. Here's the second thing that bothers me about this. They lost Terence Winter. They lost Terence Winter. Now you'd be saying, okay, why is that a big deal? Terence Winter is the frickin' man when it comes to TV. He's the man. This guy is a multi-time Emmy-winning writer, television writer, and showrunner. He was behind Sopranos. He was a writer on Sopranos, executive producer on Sopranos, won a bunch of Emmys for Sopranos. He was the creator of Boardwalk Empire, which, by the way, if you guys never watched Boardwalk Empire, that is a show of shows, man. Boardwalk Empire with Steve Buscemi is a freaking awesome show. Like, just absolutely stunningly freaking awesome show. In the world of film, no big deal. He just wrote Wolf of Wall Street for Martin Scorsese. No big deal. This guy, the guy behind Sopranos, Boardwalk Empire, Wolf of Wall Street, this guy was going to be the showrunner of Gotham PD. And that was the main reason I got really excited. Like, listen, you're going to be doing a spin-off series based on Batman, particularly based off this brand new Batman we've got coming. That's exciting in and of itself. But you had this guy was going to run it. This guy was going to be your showrunner. And you lost him. How do you lose him? How do you get that guy and lose him before you even start shooting the show? Like, I don't know. Look, you know me, right? Like, normally I side with studios and networks because it's their property, right? I normally side that way because I have a fundamental belief that, look, it belongs to them. They get to do whatever they want to do, right? That's my generally, but there are some exceptions. This is the exception. I don't care. If Terence Winter says, you know what, I think we should take this show this way, then maybe you should go, you know what, all those Emmys on your shelf tell me you kind of know what you're talking about, and maybe we should just go with what you want to do. I don't know. Call me crazy. Look, this is not to say that Gotham PD can't get another very good showrunner. Obviously, they can. They have nothing but money to throw at people if they want. This is not to say that Gotham PD will not end up being a truly fantastic show. Of course it could. But it bums me out that you had this franchise with this showrunner attached and you lost him. And you know what was really exciting about Terrence Howard? It's that he didn't come from a comic book background. It's that he didn't come from genre background. He came from writing gritty, awesome drama with fantastic stories and deep characters. And the fact that he could have brought that into that world with him, that was delicious on my tongue. That was delicious. And it's gone. And it sucks. And we may get great news about this later. We may find out another great showrunner comes on, and all things could end up being totally great. But I'm not going to lie to you guys. This stings. This stings a little because that was the most exciting thing about this project. Anyway, guys, question is, what do you think about Gotham PD losing out on this showrunner? Jump on down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. One more thing to get to off the top before we get into our main topics, and that is this. You know, one of the filmmakers, I mean, it's a little hit and miss for me, but when he hits, I just love what he does, is Spike Lee. You know, he recently just did The Five Bloods on Netflix, which was really good. He did his most recent theatrical film, was Black Klansman, which ended up being my number 2 favorite movie of the year that year. That movie was so ridiculously good. I loved it. A lot of his older stuff as well. Spike Lee is great. And a lot of people are wondering, what's Spike Lee going to do? Well, apparently, and again, this doesn't come to us from Gus's gas station .fart movie reviews. This comes to us from Deadline. And you can't make this stuff up, folks. Apparently, Spike Lee's new movie is going to be a Viagra musical. Let me say that again, because I just can't believe the words that just came out of my mouth. Spike Lee is about to do a Viagra musical. Yeah. I'm just going to let you sit on that for a second. Just let that wash over you for a moment. Because it's not just that he's doing a Viagra movie. He's doing a Viagra movie that's going to be a musical. I can just see it now. Everybody humming to the tune of Stiffy in their car. I've got a Stiffy. You've got a Stiffy. I mean, I don't know what they're going to come up with for this. I don't know. And I just can't help but feel that a part of this goes to the deep-seated sense of humor that Spike Lee has got deep down in him. Spike Lee has got to have a sense of humor deep down in him. But this is no joke. Apparently they're doing this. Now, of course, this Viagra is actually made by a company called Pfizer, which is really big in the news right now because Pfizer was the first company that came out and said, we've got a vaccine for the COVID pandemic. 90% effective. And then they just said their most recent trial now says 94% effective. So they've been big in the news and everything like that. But what made them their billions is that little blue pill. I've got a Stiffy. Come on, guys, start humming it. You're going to be humming. This is going to be bigger than Hamilton. This is going to be bigger than Hamilton. No pun intended. And Spike Lee's going to do it. Look, I don't know. This sounds to me like something right out of the pages of WeGotThisCovered.com, but it's Deadline and it's real. And you know what? Here's the funny thing. Not that that isn't already inherently funny, but here's the truly funny thing about this. It is sometimes these weird, wacky little projects with these weird quirks that could turn out to be like the greatest things ever. Let's not forget, Spike Lee is an Academy Award-winning filmmaker, right? This isn't being done by the guys from South Park. This isn't Trey Parker. Dude, and no disrespect to those guys. I love those guys. But I'm just saying, this is an Academy Award-winning filmmaker. He's going to be doing a musical about Viagra. Come on, guys, sing along. You know you want to. Anyway, guys, question is, what do you think about this? Jump on down to the comment section below and let me know your stiffies or your thoughts. Anyway, guys, with that down, let's now move on to our main topics today, shall we? How do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with them by going to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact whenever you come across a big topic or story that you think we should have as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. Just going over to that address. When you get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's totally free. Hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's get into main topic number 1, shall we? And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Steve Calderon. And Steve Calderon writes, Stephen Caple Jr. is set to direct the new Transformers movie. I thought Stephen did a fantastic job taking over for Ryan Coogler in Creed 2, so I have no worries of him helming the new installment. What are thoughts, probably meant your thoughts, what are your thoughts on this news, and do you think the new Transformers will be a reboot or a continuation of Bumblebee? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yeah, Stephen Caple, who I had never really heard of, to be honest with you. He had done one or two other little things, but until Creed 2 came around, I had never, he wasn't a household name in the Campea household, let's put it that way, right? So he comes in with very, very big shoes to fill to do Creed 2, taking over the director's chair from Ryan Coogler. Big shoes to fill. And I got to say, I liked Creed 2. I did. I like Creed 2. Actually, I liked it quite a bit. I did not think it was as good as the original Creed, but that's a very, very tall order. But still, I thought Creed 2 was really quite good and really quite solid. Anyway, now he's doing Transformers. This comes to us from the folks over at Deadline who write, after meeting with several top execs, including Paramount Motion Pictures president Emma Watts, the studio saw Capel as the best fit for the franchise that the studio chose to revamp at the top of the year. That's important to note there. They chose to revamp the franchise. Anyway, at the top of the year, having two simultaneous scripts that are in active development, one by James Vanderbilt and one by Joby Harold. Harold's film eventually would be chosen as the next installment in the franchise. So it was Joby's script that got picked. And once he had given his final touches on the script at the end of the summer, the studio began taking director pitches on the next film. All right, first off, I should say this. My first concern about this, and there are a number of concerns I have about this story. The first concern I have about this is Joby Harold, the screenwriter. Now, look, I'm not here to ditch on him, all right? Let's be clear. But he has written some very unsuccessful films. One film he did, which is honestly like a top 15 worst film I've seen in theaters in my entire life, was the Hayden Christensen film. I believe it was called Awake. It's the one where he has to go under for open heart surgery, but he's not actually unconscious. He's awake. His body just looks like it's asleep and he's experiencing it's anyway, not a very good film. He also wrote the recent Charlie Hunnam's star King Arthur, starring Charlie Hunnam. Now, I'm one of the few people on this green earth that actually liked Charlie Hunnam's King Arthur movie. I did. I admit it. I liked it. But the reality is, the vast majority of the other human beings on the planet did not like it at all. And it failed utterly miserably. Now, there's a lot that goes into that. So listen, again, I'm not here to bag on the dude because he might be capable of an award-winning script, right? I'm just saying, as a Transformers fan, seeing that this guy's script is the one that was picked, it just makes me a little cautious right now. It just makes me a little cautious. The other bit of apprehension that I feel is that, they knocked it out of the park with Bumblebee. They really did. With Travis Knight directing, who also, of course, directed Kubo and the Two Strings, with Travis Knight directing, they found a way to infuse humanity and heart into the Transformers franchise, something it had sorely missed ever since the very first Transformers movie. There had been no heart in any of the Transformers films. Travis Knight comes along and he took all the great, fun, bombastic nature of Transformers and he infused it with heart. And I loved it. I loved Bumblebee. And I was really hoping, as had kind of been rumored and whispered, that they would just continue on with that. But it sounds like they've just decided to pull the plug on everything and just revamp the whole franchise. So it sounds like, at any rate, a move to reboot. We'll see how that goes. Now, as far as Steven himself goes, it is very difficult to judge anybody when you don't have enough of a sample size, right? When you just simply don't have enough of a sample size. And for me right now, the only thing I've got from him is Creed 2, which I think he did quite a good job on. I think he did quite a good job on that. Yes, it was a step down from Ryan Coogler, but right now, Ryan Coogler is like one of the gold standards of directors in Hollywood right now. So that's not such a bad thing. He stepped in to fill big shoes, and I thought he did a damn good job. So is he a good fit for Transformers? I don't know. Again, I just don't have a big enough sample size. So all I can do right now is kind of sit back and go, okay, Paramount, we're going to trust you. We're going to trust you. We're going to trust you picking Joby's script, and we're going to trust you that Steven is the guy to direct that script. I'm not going to lie. I don't want to be negative. I'm just saying I'd be lying if I didn't tell you I was a little bit apprehensive. That's all. Just a little. It's just a little bit of healthy apprehension. That's all. But also great hope. So let's see what they do with this as they revamp the Transformers franchise. Here's hoping it's going to be as good as it maybe has the promise to be. Here's hoping they can really start to capture the magic and awe and wonder of what the Transformers can be on the big screen. And we'll see what they come up with. Question is, guys, what do you think about this announcement? It's really a couple things in one, that they're moving ahead with this revamping of Transformers. We got the director from Creed 2 doing it. How do you feel about that? Does the choice of screenwriter worry you? Jump on down to the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down, let's move on to our second and final main topic today. And our second and final main topic today gets submitted to us by Ben Ascaria. I've got a friend whose last name is Ascaria. Anyway, Ben Ascaria writes, "Greetings, John. I was wondering if you saw the news that Cinemark, the third largest theater chain in America, and Universal have reached an agreement kind of similar to the AMC one. Yeah, it's kind of similar, not exactly the same, but kind of similar, where the theatrical window will be drastically shortened. This is clearly bad for movie theaters. So why would Cinemark do something like this? Isn't it kind of like signing their own death warrants?" All right, thanks for sending that in, dude. So this is really interesting. And I think there's a lot to unpack here, and probably more to unpack than we can in just one simple sitting. We'll probably be talking about this for a while. Of course, a while ago, AMC announced a positively mind-boggling, stupid decision to enter in an agreement with Universal, and only Universal, that Universal can put their movies on AMC screens and then be able to put it out on, home video of some sort a number of weeks later. This, of course, is absolutely devastating for the movie industry to do, but it's what AMC, who is on desperate life support right now, in desperate times, you do desperate things, and they did that. Now, there was really nothing to worry about that deal because it was only Universal. And that deal with AMC really held no power. And the reason that deal with AMC had no power was because AMC is just one movie theater chain. And just because AMC agrees to let them put, Bobby's Big Fart. Okay, so Universal puts out a movie called Bobby's Big Fart. Okay. It's great that AMC says, oh yeah, we're cool with you putting it on our theater screens and then putting it out on home video release just a few weeks later. But that doesn't matter because the other theater chains hadn't agreed to that. And as long as the other theater chains don't agree to that, there's really nothing Universal can do other than only put their films and only put Bobby's Big Fart on AMC screens. That dynamic has now changed, and changed significantly, as now we have a situation where now the third largest theater chain has entered into a similar deal. Not an indefinite deal. It's only for a few years, but still it's for a few years. When we had first heard that Cinemark was entertaining the idea of entering into something of a similar deal as AMC did with Universal, the comments coming out of Cinemark was it would be on a film-by-film basis if we did something, and we could kill it anytime. And if you guys remember on the show that we talked about this, I said, well, then maybe that's not a bad move for Cinemark. While the pandemic is going on, this may not be a bad idea, right? Get some theaters, some movies in your theaters, play it for a certain amount of window, get some audience coming in to see it. It's not going to be a lot because of the pandemic right now, and that's okay. And then let Universal then take it and put it out on their home video stream. And for during the pandemic, that actually seemed like not a bad move. But this deal that they actually agreed to is not that deal. It's actually far more reaching. This comes to us from the folks at the Hollywood Reporter, who writes, under the terms of the multi-year pact, a Universal movie opening to $50 million or more at the domestic box office can be made available at home via premium VOD. We'll talk about this in a second. Via premium VOD, beginning 31 days after it opens in the big screen. That's a change from a 3-month theatrical window to just a 1-month theatrical window. It's a huge difference. That's if the movie opening weekend makes $50 million or more at the domestic opening weekend box office. The window doesn't apply to regular on-demand or streaming and is premium VOD only. Now, let's break that down for a second before we move on with this. What that basically means is, if Universal puts out a movie, let's say Bob's Big Fart, and it makes $51 million on its opening weekend. Well, now what Universal can do, according to this deal, is that in 31 days, they can make it available on iTunes or the Google Play Store for a premium, that's probably going to be $20 to $30, a premium VOD rental, $20 to $30. It does not mean that they can take Bob's Big Fart and just put it out on Netflix or put it out on a regular $4 rental or anything like that. It means that after 31 days, they can put out a premium VOD, $20, $30, $35 mark for a rental only. So that's an interesting thing that they pointed out there. That's a pretty interesting thing. Let's keep reading on this. The window doesn't apply to regular on-demand or streaming and is premium VOD only. Cinemark, the country's third largest chain, is okay with all other Universal, DreamWorks Animations, and Focus Features movies being made available on premium VOD after 17 days. All right? Similar to the history-making arrangement Universal struck with AMC Entertainment in late July. Okay, so let's go back to Bob's Big Fart. How many times are you going to say that today? Let's go back to Bob's Big Fart, the movie. Let's say it makes $51 million opening weekend. Okay, that means in 31 days, Universal can put it out on premium VOD. I expect that maybe all the other streaming avenues would remain at the regular 3-month window. Like you won't see it on a streaming service or for a $5 rental or whatever for probably 3 months still, I'm guessing. But if Bob's Big Fart makes $51 million, then in 31 days, they can put it out on premium VOD. But if Bob's Big Fart makes $30 million or anything under 50, that triggers a clause that says Universal can now put it out on premium VOD in just 17 days. 17 days. In just 2 weeks. The majority of feature films make under $50 million opening weekend. So that means a majority, not all, films will have a 17-day window. Now, again, it just says after 17 days, it can do a premium VOD release, not on a regular streaming service, regular rental. I'm guessing, again, that means they're going to have to wait the full 90 days as normal to put those things out on a regular thing. This, I'm going to tell you right now, is absolutely catastrophic to the movie theater industry. This is absolutely catastrophic to the movie theater industry. There is a reason that movie theaters like AMC and now Cinemark are giving in to this type of thing with Universal now and not before, because now they're desperate. Now their backs are against the wall. Now they have no leverage. Now they needed to stand strong, but decided they were in too weak of a position to do it. And in making this decision, I am telling you, this is the beginning of the end of movie theaters. This is the beginning of the end for movie theaters. When I've told this story before, but back a number of years ago, when I was still working with AMC, and, you know, a few times a year, they would fly me out to Kansas to go to AMC headquarters, and I'd meet with all the, you know, the big wigs there and whatever. I remember one of those visits sitting down with like one of the VPs, and there was at the time, and remember, this is years ago, there was some controversy stirring up about one or two of the studios wanted to shorten that 3-month theatrical window, right? They wanted to shorten it. Like, this is a discussion. These are discussions and things that have been going on for years. All right. All the way back since I was at AMC. Anyway, I remember sitting down with one of the vice presidents and a couple of his team members, and I asked them about theatrical window stuff, and they basically spent about 15 minutes laying out to me why the theatrical window was absolutely imperative to the survival of movie theaters. And they laid it out stage by stage for me about this is why we cannot shrink these theatrical windows, at least not significantly. Because our studies show this is what happens, and this is what happens, and this is what happens if we shrink these theatrical windows. End game is we go out of business. And Regal understood that. Cinemark understood that. All that kind of stuff. Right now, though, we are in very unique times. We are in what they would call desperate times even. And sometimes desperate times call for desperate measures. But this is a desperate measure. Make no mistake. This is a measure of desperation that they're willing to give into things like this. And I'll tell you why. Now, some people might say, well, John, I mean, if the theaters go out of business, here's the problem. And we've kind of alluded on this a little bit lately, and Rob articulated this well the other day, but let me kind of lay this down again. One of my truly biggest fear about movie theaters becoming irrelevant. Now, remember, last year, like, don't listen to any of these people come out and say, oh, the movie theaters were already dying. Don't listen to any of that BS. Last year was record-setting box office numbers. Last year set all sorts of box office numbers, and it was the third largest box office year in the history of Hollywood. Just last year. But this year has been different. And here's my fear. On the one hand, there's a personal preference fear. And that personal preference fear of mine is simply, and I know some of you share this, some of you don't, and that's fine. I'm just talking to you from a personal point of view. There is nothing I love more than the movie-going experience. There's nothing I love more. Every day, you've heard me say this, but every day that I wake up, on a day that I know I'm going to the movies that day, it's just a good day. The sun's shining a little bit brighter. The air smells a little bit sweeter. The grass feels just a little bit nicer under my feet. You know, there's just, I just wake up in a good mood knowing that day I'm going to the movie theaters today. I may not even be excited about the movie I'm going to see, but I'm going to the movie theaters today. Particularly when it's a day that I'm going to movie theaters with my best friend, my wife, or other friends and people we know or family or whatever, especially then. Because I love going to the movies, even by myself, but I especially love going to the movies with my friends, with my wife, with, you know, just, I love that. It's just the best. Going there, walking into the theater, smelling the popcorn in the air, finding your seat, being surrounded with other film fans you don't even know on this big screen and the big sound and the movie hits and, dude, I've got a stiffy. You know, it's just, we got Spike Lee's movie coming into effect right now. Just thinking about it gets me excited. Just gets me excited. It gets you a night out off your damn ass and out of your stupid house. A night out with friends, enjoy it, experience some art that these skilled filmmakers and actors and CGI wizards and editors and sound mixers have put together this piece of art for you to enjoy. I love it. I love it. And listen, I love watching TV at home. I do, but it ain't as good. It's just not as good. You're just sitting on your ass in your house like you do every other night, like the pathetic losers we are all becoming. And we just sit and do the same thing we did last night. It's better. It's just better. But that's not my biggest fear. That's not my biggest fear about the loss of movie theaters. My biggest fear is actually an extension of that, which is this. We were talking the other day about how Disney Plus just hit 73 million subscribers in their first year alone, right? 73 million subscribers in their first year alone. And they did it without any premium original programming. Oh yeah, we had 8 episodes of Mandalorian a year ago. We got Mandalorian now, but that 73 million hit before the new Mandalorian hit. We had Hamilton drop. That's not really a Disney original, but whatever. We had Hamilton drop. That was great. Netflix has about 3 times the amount of subscribers that Disney Plus does. And they spend, I think, in excess of $20 billion a year in content creation. Most of that money goes into scrub filler material. You know, here's the thing. For every The Five Bloods, or for every The Chicago 7, or for every The Old Guard, there's like 15 pieces of garbage that they produce. Because for Netflix and for streaming service, and I love my Netflix, and don't get me wrong, I love my Netflix, I really do. But for Netflix, it's about quantity. It's about quantity. And every once in a while, put out something real high quality. Every once in a while, throw out something really high quality. But it's really about quantity. Because they just crank out so much stuff. Like when you realize that in August, 57 pieces of original content came out on Netflix. What does that have to do with Disney's 73 million and all that kind of stuff? It's this. My fear is we're going to see over the course of 3, 4, or 5 years, a rapid decline in quality movies because the streamers know they don't have to make them. They don't have to make them. Again, Disney just hit 73 million subscribers, putting out basically no original content. Do you think they're going to feel the need to continue to put out 20 pieces of high quality, high budget, high effort, premium pieces of content when they're still just going to get the same amount of money that they were going to get, even if they only did half of that, or a quarter of that, or a tenth of that? They're not, because they don't have to. It's the same for Netflix. It'll be the same for HBO Max. When the theaters are gone, I'm not saying we're never going to have good movies again. Don't get me wrong. But let's take 2019, for example. What a killer year. Killer year. Yeah, at best, divide that by half. As far as the really high, great quality movies that we will get that are made specifically for premium VOD or streaming, because the streamers know they don't need to. And if you don't believe that, again, just look at what's happened with Disney Plus. 73 million subscribers, 1/3 the amount of Netflix subscribers in just their first year. No original content. Fantastic library. And that's what it'll become about. It's all just going to become about the libraries and the library content. And that is my fear. It's not my Nostradamus absolute ironclad guarantee of doom and gloom and woe, but it is my fear. And I believe we're already seeing that starting to happen a little bit. And once the theaters are gone, I think you're going to see that decline accelerate. I hope not. I still believe there will be the odd great movie that gets made. Absolutely, I do. But it makes me worried. Now, is this now locked in stone? Is this now, it's dead? Now that Cinemark has made this deal, is it a done thing? No, there is still some hope for movie theaters. And there's a couple of things that can happen here. I think number one is that Universal realizes after a period of time that this arrangement is not even working for them. And I think Universal will realize this. I believe at some point Universal is going to realize this strategy is hurting our theatrical release. We're not making near the money on the theatrical release that we used to. And because we're diluting it like this, we're not getting the amount of people signing up to get the premium VOD after the fact either. So I'm not saying that's what will happen. I'm saying that's a possibility. And if Universal decides that this arrangement is not working for us, that could save the movie theaters. The other thing that could save movie theaters is this, is that if the other studios stand their ground. Now, Disney, I will tell you right now, does not want to shrink the theatrical window because Disney puts out big hit films. Universal does not. But Disney puts out big hit films, and the theatrical window actually helps Disney, they know, make these billions and billions and billions of dollars at the box office. Disney doesn't want that theatrical window to disappear. They don't want that theatrical window to be touched, because if you put out constant, great, popular, fan favorite content, that theatrical window will make you a lot of money. That's why Disney hasn't said anything about this yet, because it works for them. Universal doesn't put out a constant stream of high quality fan favorite content. They're lucky that they get out a couple things every year, which is actually better than most. But anyway, so this maybe appeals to them a little bit more. So number one, Universal realizes it's not working the way they want to and they back out. That's hope number one. Hope number two is that the other studios stand their ground. I'm not saying the other studios will stand their ground. I'm not saying that, but that is the hope. That Disney, Warner Brothers, these studios who are more proficient in putting out higher quality content that gets fans excited, that they'll realize that theatrical window works for them better and they make more money if they stand their ground. Again, I'm not saying that'll happen. I'm saying that's the hope. The third thing that might give hope to this is if Regal and Cineworld, they're the company that owns them, stand their ground. And I don't know that they will. Look, it was one thing for Regal to say, we're not going to budge on this when it was just AMC. When just AMC signed that deal with Universal, it wasn't terribly difficult for Regal to say, well, good for AMC, but screw y'all. We're standing our ground on this. We are not going to shrink the theatrical window. It dynamically changes, though, once Cinemark also throws in with that deal. Once Cinemark throws in with that deal with Universal as well, now you got AMC and Cinemark. Now you're talking out of the big three movie theater chains in North America. Regal is now the odd man out. And now the pressure is going to mount. And I simply do not know, despite their grandstanding, and I applaud them for it, but despite their grandstanding of saying, we're drawing a line in the sand and we're not budging from this, that's great. But that was before Cinemark signed up for the deal too. And now there's going to be increased pressure. Universal now has a lot more leverage. I'm not saying that Regal will give into it, but I'm saying it's a lot more likely that they will now that Cinemark has signed that deal. So I don't know if any of these can work, but I think the three big rays of hope for movie theaters are either A, Universal backs out of the deal, B, other studios stand their ground, rendering Universal's arrangement useless, or 3, Regal stands their ground. That will hopefully, the longer, that will put more pressure on Universal to back out. But again, I don't know that any of those are going to happen. My fear is, ladies and gentlemen, as the world's biggest proponent of the movie theater going experience, I think this Cinemark deal just may spell the end of movie theaters, and thus ending a lot of great things we're going to lose when the movie theaters go. And I think there's going to be a systemic tectonic shift in everything when that happens. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen this year. It's not going to happen next year. But I'm telling you, I think this starts the clock ticking. Unless one of those hopeful situations come out. And listen, the reality is, I've only been sitting on this for less than 24 hours. Maybe I'll think of benefits of this, although I can't think of any off the top of my head. Maybe I'll think of other ways this could work. And maybe I'll feel differently about this a week from now. Like, I acknowledge I've only been sitting on this for like 24 hours or less, right? So I haven't been able to give it, as an individual fan, all the thought that it deserves. But yeah, guys, I'm just telling you right now, it does not feel great. It does not feel great. And we'll see what happens. And maybe I just woke up in a pessimistic mood today, and it just seems grim and gray to me. Maybe that's the case. Maybe I need a little bit of that Spike Lee Viagra. I'm feeling stiffy. I don't know. Maybe I just need a little bit of that in my life right now. Maybe I just need to feel better. I don't know. We'll see how that all works out. Question here is, guys, what do you think about this whole situation? Again, it's such a big topic. I think we only touched on the surface of it here today. I'm sure we will talk about this issue more in the coming days and weeks. But anyway, I think it could be very significant. How do you feel about this? What are your thoughts? What are you thinking about from angles that maybe I'm overlooking right now? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Jump down into the comments section below and leave your thoughts there. All right, guys. With all of that down and out of the way, let's now go over and spend the rest of the morning here taking your live comments and questions. Once again, if you want to send in a live comment or question to be read on the show, go to the description of this video. Right at the top, you'll see a tip link. It's streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be supporting the show, and you'll be getting your question or comment on the show, again, if it's reasonable. All right. That said, let's get on over and start taking your live questions, guys. Hey, John, love the show. What a great username. Hey, John, love the show, writes, One of the reasons the first Avengers is so great is because it's backwards compatible. Even if you've never seen the MCU, it still totally works as a movie. How well do you think it would have done at the box office without the prior films coming out? Well, listen, that is not just a great thing about the first Avengers movie. That is a great thing about the MCU in general. Kevin Feige has done a fantastic job of making sure that almost, not everyone, but almost every movie that's come out in the MCU, if it was your first MCU movie watching, you won't be lost. Like that's the great thing about the way Kevin Feige's approached a lot of the MCU. I was mentioning the other day, Ann and I have a friend that came over, her and her boyfriend came over and watched Infinity War with us for the first time. She'd never seen an MCU. Well, she might have seen one. She might have seen like the Captain America First Avenger or something, but she really hadn't watched them, but heard all the hoopla around Infinity War. Said, oh, let's watch that tonight. Put it on. She wasn't lost at all. Was she able to get everything and all the nuance in the movie? No, obviously not, but she was able to sit down and enjoy it straight up as a movie itself. And you're right, Avengers, that first Avengers movie, absolutely. You don't have to have seen the first Thor or the first Captain America or the first Iron Man to be able to come in and just watch Avengers and completely enjoy it as its own experience. Would it have done as well at the box? Because it broke all sorts of box office records when it came out. Would it have done that well without the previous films? Not as well. I still think it would have been a big hit, but having a little bit of lead up to it certainly helped its box office results, no doubt. So, an effect, yes. Drastic effect difference? I don't think drastic difference, but definitely an effect. All right, next up. Raymond Verrata writes, I love it how art meets real life. One of the astronauts brought aboard a baby Yoda aboard the crew Dragon Resilience as its zero-G indicator. I hope Baby Yoda doesn't play with buttons or eat the science experiments aboard the space station. I did not know. Of course, SpaceX launched their ship the other day, and it actually hooked up with the space station last night. I did not know about that. I did not know about the fact that they brought aboard the Baby Yoda. That's awesome. Now I'm going to have to, as soon as we're done here, I'm going to have to probably go and look up some YouTube video of that, because that's great. Baby Yoda goes to space. All right. Art Teacher Movie Fan writes, hello, John and Rob. Unfortunately, Rob's not here today. Saw the movie trailer for your documentary, and I am so excited to see it. My question is, do you think Anya Taylor-Joy, being Netflix's #1 show, is starring in Netflix's #1 show, The Queen's Gambit, will help her win audiences over for Furiosa Mad Max show? Well, first of all, Art Teacher Movie Fan, Furiosa is not going to be a show. It's going to be a prequel movie that they're making. It's going to be a prequel movie. So it's not a show. That said, I don't know. Here's the thing. I don't think people were turned off by the fact that it was Anya Taylor-Joy. I don't think that turned people off, that it was going to be Anya Taylor-Joy playing Furiosa, the younger Furiosa, made famous in the last Mad Max movie, of course, by one of the world's greatest actresses, Charlize Theron. They weren't mad because it was Anya Taylor-Joy. They were mad because it wasn't Charlize Theron. Period. You could have put in Meryl Streep, and there would have still been people upset. My point of view on this has always been, look, the movies are not there to serve the characters. The characters are there to serve the story. And if the story George Miller wants to tell is the story of a younger Furiosa, if that's the story he's got burning in his soul that he wants to tell, then it can't be Charlize Theron. It can't be her. And you don't change the movie just so you can get a particular actor or actress in it. That's doing it ass backwards. Story comes first. Or as Aaron said the other day, as an actress, actors are not there to be the story. Actors are there to help tell the story. And so if George Miller's story he wants to tell is a younger Furiosa, you got to go younger. So since I don't think people's problem was with Anya Taylor-Joy to start with, I don't think her being in Queen's Gambit and she was really good in Queen's Gambit. I haven't seen the whole thing, but I've watched about 5 or 6 episodes of it now. She's really good. But since I don't think she was ever the problem with people, I don't think it's going to make it any better. I think people are just going to have to wait till the movie comes out, and hopefully it's as good as we all think it can be, and that will win people over. But I think people need to see that a young Furiosa movie without Charlize Theron can work perfectly great, and until that happens, I don't know that people are going to be much happier about it. We'll find out, though. We'll find out. Okay, next up. Donnie Yasu writes, believe it or not, Greatest American Hero opening line. Believe it or not, I could not get into Star Wars as a kid. However, when episode 1 was coming out, local cinema re-released episode 4. I was brought to watch it, and I became a fan ever since. Seeing everyone jump out of their seat with the Death Star explode was great. I mean, I still remember when the special editions came out. And look, obviously, I'm not a big fan of the special editions. I prefer the original versions of the movie. But that being said, I remember when that special edition came out, and my mom and I, we went to the movie theater, to the Cineplex movie theater on Upper James in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Now, for those of you who might be in Hamilton right now, you're like, wait a minute, there is no movie theater on Upper James. There was. It went away not long before I moved to Los Angeles, but there used to be a Cineplex theater there. It was great. Anyway, I remember going that just to see Star Wars on the big screen again. It was so amazing because it had been since I was a child, like a wee little child, but since I saw Star Wars on the big screen, and being able to go there with my mom, who had kind of given me my love of Star Wars, was a real special thing. You know, again, I'm not a big fan of the special editions per se, but you know, that was a great experience. So I'm glad you had that experience too, Donnie. All right. Cecil writes, prediction. Thor and Star-Lord have a getting back in shape training montage with Hearts on Fire from Rocky IV playing in the background while they take turns on a Bowflex. Well, I mean, that's been the gag ever since they announced Thor Love and Thunder, right? Everybody has said in Thor Love and Thunder, there's got to be a Star-Lord and Thor getting in shape video montage a la Rocky style, right? I wouldn't bet against it. The only thing that I think may stop Taika Waititi from putting that in there is the fact that everybody's already joked about it so much. I mean, seriously, I think the fact that all of us have joked so much about that it may just make Taika Waititi go, the joke would be old now if I put it in the movie. So I think that would be like the only thing keeping it out, because I think it would be fun. All right, Caesar Rivera writes, hey, John and Rob, I'm not sure if you guys watch anime. I'm not really into anime a lot. But if you were to watch, I would recommend Cowboy Bebop. That is one I've watched. I've watched Cowboy Bebop. And My Hero Academia. I've not watched that. They're both on Hulu, and they're pretty great, especially Cowboy Bebop. I'm not a huge fan of Cowboy Bebop, but my wife watched My Hero Academia, and she has been trying to get me to watch it. And I don't know. I think I saw a preview for it once, and it just didn't hit me. The preview, but my wife keeps trying to get me to watch it. Anne keeps trying to get me to watch it. I've had a number of you guys write in and tell me to watch it. I might just have to give in. I may just have to cave and finally sit down and watch My Hero Academia because, you know, I know it would make my wife happy. All right. Let's see here. Next up, Patrick Conway writes, I think Star-Lord will have a role similar to Spider-Man and Ant-Man in Civil War, but I think Rocket and Groot will have a major role due to their friendship they built in Infinity War and Endgame with Thor. So Thor, also a Gamora tease in the credits. Let's start with the Gamora tease. I don't know that they do a Gamora tease in the credits because Gamora is not a Thor character. Yeah, I don't see that. If anything, maybe a Loki tease. I could see them doing a Loki tease, particularly if Thor Love and Thunder comes out before the Loki show. And I can't remember off the top of my head what the scheduling order is supposed to be. I don't know about Gamora. Anyway, I don't think we're going to see any Guardians of the Galaxy characters have big, significant roles. Not big roles. Like Rob and I talked the other day about maybe Star-Lord takes over that Hulk role. Remember how big of a role Hulk had in Thor Love and Thunder? It was Thor's movie, really, but it was kind of a Thor and Hulk movie, even though it was definitively a Thor movie. There's one train of thought that this new Thor Love and Thunder could be a Thor and Star-Lord movie, like primarily Thor, and it revolves around Thor, but it's kind of a Thor and Star-Lord movie. I don't think they're going to do that, especially not when you have Valkyrie there, especially not when you're bringing in a Christian Bale to be your villain in the film, which I think a lot of people keep forgetting about. Christian Bale is going to be the villain in Thor: Love and Thunder. How great is that? And we keep forgetting about that. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see. I am excited about it though, Patrick. All right. Koa1708 writes, let's say the Snyder Cut is a success. Everybody's asked this question like 1,000 times. What if, anyway, is there any chance we can get a sequel in the same universe style? Look, whenever you ask a question that has the word any or ever or could, any question that has those words in it, any, ever, or could, the answer is always yes, right? The answer is always yes. If Snyder Cut comes out, and if everybody loves it, and if all the critics adore it, and if all the fans keep talking about it, and if could there be any chance that Warner Brothers would want to do a follow-up and a sequel? Well, the answer to could ever is the answer is always yes. It's always yes. However, and this is important, and I say this as somebody who, other than Sucker Punch, this is coming from somebody who has positively reviewed every single movie Zack Snyder's ever made, other than Sucker Punch. As somebody who has outright loved a couple of his movies to at least liked all the rest, other than Sucker Punch, including that Owl. Again, if you guys haven't seen his Owls of Gaul movie, you really should. I actually think it's a really solid movie. Anyway, that aside, the reality is, and this is indisputable, a lot of people hate Zack Snyder's DCEU stuff. Man of Steel, which to me is one of the greatest comic book movies ever made. It is absolutely the most underrated comic book movie of all time. It is flat out spectacular. That gets better every time I watch it. But the reality is, despite the fact that I feel that way, half the people hate it. And half the critics hated it. And I can't ever bring it up without getting my inbox flooded with, no, you're wrong, Man of Steel sucks. It's like, okay, fine. Like, I don't, it's fine if you don't like it. That's cool. I'm just saying, as great as it is, and it is great, it did not work for a lot of people. Fast forward now to Batman versus Superman. I like Batman versus Superman, but half the critics hated it and half the audience hated it. It drastically underperformed at the box office, like drastically underperformed at the box office. A movie called Batman versus Superman should have made $1 billion in its sleep. It should have potentially been a $2 billion film. Not that ever would have been easy, but the potential was there. Batman versus Superman, the two greatest comic book characters of all time. Should have possibly been a $2 billion, but $1 billion easy in its sleep, and it underperformed. It made money, make no mistake, it made money, but it underperformed for a movie called Batman versus Superman. Half the critics hated it, half the people hated it. I only raise that up and bring that up, despite the fact that I like them, to say, I don't know that there's any basis to have any sort of belief that now that Zack Snyder's coming back to do another DC property, audiences already know what his flavor of DC property movies taste like. Critics already know what his flavor of DC things taste like. Zack Snyder is going to make a Zack Snyder DC movie with this Snyder Cut miniseries. And because I like his other stuff, I'm assuming I'm going to like it. But there's no reason to believe that all these people who have hated that stuff are going to suddenly magically feel differently. There's no reason right now to believe that, that this Snyder Cut, which is going to be a Zack Snyder DC interpretation, and all these people who have already seen Zack Snyder DC interpretations already know they don't like it. Critics already know, half the critics love it, half the critics don't. Half the audience loved it, half the audience didn't. That all of a sudden, magically, everybody's going to change their minds and everybody's going to like it. What I think is going to happen is that those of us who already like what he does, I think we're going to like it. Because I've seen Zack Snyder, what he does with DC characters. And I like what he does, especially with his Superman character. And God, I loved even though I didn't love Batman versus Superman, I loved what he did with Batman. I love Ben Affleck's Batman in Batman versus Superman to this day is my favorite iteration of Batman of all time. But I digress. So I think those of us who already know and recognize and are familiar with Zack Snyder's DC stuff, I think we are going to like the Justice League that he puts out on HBO Max. But I also think that those who already didn't like his DC stuff aren't going to like it. So I just think people need to manage expectations, because there's something out there that some people believe that this Justice League miniseries is going to hit HBO Max and the whole world is going to come together in absolute love and awe of it. And I just don't think that's realistic to believe. But as they say in sports, that's why you play the game, right? On paper, one team should slaughter another, but then they play the game and the bad team upsets the great team. That's why you play the game. Let's see what happens. All right, next up. Let's see. Alan writes, hey, John and Rob, have you seen the exchange on Twitter between Bryce Dallas Howard and a fan in regards to the homage reference she did to involving the opening scene on the recent Mandalorian episode and Apollo 13 directed by her father? Had no clue. No, I didn't see the Twitter exchange, but I've read this morning about Bryce Dallas Howard. So for those of you who don't know, Bryce Dallas Howard, who is the daughter of the great director Ron Howard, and Bryce Dallas Howard, of course, is Chris Pratt's co-star in the Jurassic World movies. And she directed one of the episodes of Mandalorian Season 1. And she just directed the most recent episode of Mandalorian Season 2. The one with Bo-Katan in it. The show starts with the Razor Crest coming into having a re-entry into this planet. And it has like the fire and the heat as it's going through the atmosphere, all that kind of stuff. Ron Howard directed a fabulous movie called Apollo 13 that has a similar kind of scene. And I didn't even put those pieces of the puzzle together, but apparently Bryce Dallas Howard is saying she put that in as an honor to her father for what he did in Apollo 13. And I think that's pretty good. So I didn't know that came from a Twitter exchange, but I did hear about this thing in general. And I think it's a pretty cool thing. She's done great, by the way. Her 2 episodes, I love both of her episodes of Mandalorian that she's done. I look forward to seeing what she does in the future. All right. Next up, Ahmed Z writes, I'll try my best not to bring this up again because I've asked you like a million times. Well, then why ask it again? But what is the problem with Disney and Warner Brothers making people like me happy by releasing their movies in theaters and Disney Plus at the same time so people have options? All right, last time. You know what would make people happy? If McDonald's sold Big Macs. I don't even eat Big Macs, but let's say for argument's sake, McDonald's, why doesn't McDonald's sell Big Macs for 10 cents? McDonald's should sell Big Macs for 10 cents because it would make us happy. Wouldn't it make us happy? You know what, Disney Plus? Disney Plus should be free because that would make us happy. You know what? That Maserati, that car, you know what you should do? Sell it for $50 because that will make the customers happy if you sell for $50. Yeah, if you give shit away for free, it makes people happy. The reason it does not work is because it will make them lose untold amounts of money. Like unspeakable amounts of money is what they'll lose out on. A movie that could have potentially, between a release in theater and a release on home video later, that could have equaled $1.3 billion in total, will now maybe net them $500 million in total. Right? And that's the thing. People seem to forget that home video releases still come under the current model, just a little while later. That's all. Meanwhile, the movie gets to have its full theatrical run, get all the people in the theater, make the studio all that money, and then later they get to do it all again in home video release. It's not an either or. This is a both and you'd be replacing a both and with an either or, and that's bad for business. If you're in a business, in any kind of business, and you have a both and scenario and you replace it with an either or scenario, that's bad for business. That's why Disney has learned. That's why. So yeah, it's just, could it make some people happy? Sure. But so it's selling the Maseratis for $50. It may make people happy, but ultimately it's not good for business. And that's kind of the big problem. Anyway, I could really go into that for another half hour or more, but I mean, there it is. All right, Orange Hand writes, Rob said Star Trek was like his religion. It reminds me of Futurama's Church of Trek, the sci-fi religion that doesn't take all your money. And Scotty beamed them to the Klingon ship where there would be no tribble at all. No tribble at all. All power to the engines. I don't think I saw. I mean, obviously Futurama has that character. I think that what's the name of the Captain Kirk kind of I think it was Brannigan. Was that his name? I'm looking over to the live chat now. See if you guys remember his name. Was it Zap Brannigan? Was that it? Or was it Dirk Brannigan? But I think it was Captain Brannigan anyway. Oh yes, he talks like this. We faced an army of killbots, so I sent wave after wave of my own men until the killbots hit their kill limit, which I always thought was great. So let's say Zap Brannigan was the name of the character. So there's always been a little bit of a Star Trek reference in there. I have not seen that Church of Trek episode though. Now I'm going to have to go and keep an eye open for it. All right. Raj writes, hi, John and Rob, some sad news. Eminent Indian actor. Okay. I'm bad with regular names, like domestic names. I'm bad with regular names, domestic names. I'm going to kill this. Sumitra Chatterjee passed away last Sunday. He was well known for his collaboration with famous Indian filmmaker Satyajit Ray, acting in as many as 14 of Ray's movies, mostly as a protagonist. He was 85. I did not hear about him. I'm not familiar with him, but I remember seeing on CNN the other day that a prominent, legendary actor of Indian film had just passed away. I don't like, again, I'd be lying if I told you that I was familiar with Sumitra's work. I'm not, to be honest, but I did read a little bit about that in CNN. And listen, whenever we lose an icon in any field, it's unfortunate and it's sad. So for those who know and appreciate and celebrate their Bollywood and their Indian cinema, I'm sure that's a really sad thing. Much like us losing a great icon in Hollywood like Sean Connery, it's probably on that same level for those who are fans of Indian film. So yeah, that was sad to hear. That was sad to hear, Raj. All right, next up, Willow writes, with the new deal now between Cinemark and Universal, do you still think that it was a bad mistake when AMC made the deal with Universal back in July, or were they actually ahead of the curve? No, I even think it's worse. I now think it's even worse of a deal. They literally, this deal spells their own demise. It is a deal that spells their own demise. And the fact that now Cinemark has felt pressure to also get on ball because they're in desperate measured times. And I bet you Cinemark wouldn't have done this deal if AMC hadn't done it already. It compounds the problem. So that's how I see it at any rate. Maybe I'll feel differently 2 weeks from now. But today, my first gut kind of reaction to it is not good, Willow. Not good at all. All right, let's move on here. Next up, an anonymous viewer writes, John, you are 100% right that Thrones laid the groundwork for Dany's turn. However, the final 2 seasons didn't lay the final stones that would have made her turn feel more organic. I disagree. If I'm baking bread and skip the last few steps, it's not going to taste right. I disagree. And I'll tell you why I 1000% disagree. Is because a heel turn that you can project or telegraph from 10 miles away has no effect, right? It has no effect. Let's look at Vader's turn, for example, right? Let's look at Vader's turn. Both of them. Let's look at his turn from Anakin Skywalker to Darth Vader and look at his turn from Vader back to Anakin Skywalker. In Empire and Return of the Jedi, they laid small hints, like an Empire after the Millennium Falcon's getting away near the end, and just Vader's looking out into the void of space after, the ship's getting ready to make the jump, and he says, "Son." It just gives you that little hint. It gives you that little hint that when push came to shove, that if push comes to shove, Vader will turn against the Emperor to save his son, right? They didn't need to have, in Return of the Jedi, a scene where Vader goes into his private little dome chamber and goes, "Dear diary, I don't know what to do about Luke. I'm so torn between my loyalty to the Emperor and the blood of my own son. Maybe I should save my son." They didn't have to spell it out for us, right? And hold our little hands and take us every little step around the way. Because when you come to that pivotal, what I call in movies, that come to Jesus moment in movies, when you come to that, there's still, for it to have impact, there still needs to remain a little bit of that ambiguity. There has to remain a little bit of a guess as to which way they're going to go. Here's another good example. The beginning of the beginning of Infinity War, when, Thanos has wiped everybody on the ship out and he's making that deal with Loki. You knew, I think Loki may stand up for Thor, but when it came right down to it, right up until he tried to kill Thanos, you weren't 100% sure whether he was actually throwing in his lot with Thanos or not, right? I think I have made the argument personally, and I said for years, and everybody told me I was wrong, but I said for years, because we used to do a Game of Thrones post show, right? And for years, I said, Dany is a jerk, Daenerys. Dany is a jerk. She is a tyrant in the making. They're making it totally clear that she is that tyrant in the making. And when it comes down to it, you're going to see. And everybody said, no, John, you don't get it. You don't get it. You don't get it. And then sure enough, the end of Game of Thrones comes. She makes that heel turn, like I said for years she was going to do. And everybody said, that came out of nowhere. No, it didn't. It didn't come out of nowhere. And I personally think, Anonymous, that if they were to have held everybody's hands, it would have taken away the dramatic impact of it. If they just pablum fed it to us, like, and now we're going to have her do this, and now we're going to have her do this, and now we're going to have her do this, and now we're going to have, when they really laid all the foundational moments that really told us for years that when her come to Jesus moment happens, when that come to Jesus moment happens for Daenerys, and it's, these people won't bend the knee. She's always been able to get them to do it throughout the show, through all the seasons. What happens when a push comes to shove and she doesn't get what she wants? What happens then? And it happened, just like I thought they telegraphed it, and without making it so brutally honest that even a child could have seen it coming. But anyway, that's just me. That's just me. Doesn't mean you have to agree with me or anything like that. But I love these discussions. I love these conversations. But your point is well made. All right, next up. Pedro Maldonado writes, I just watched the Freaky movie this weekend, and I really enjoyed the Freaky Fridays twist, and I thought that the way Blumhouse notoriously makes movies with back pocket change, isn't this the best time for small studios to put out their movies? Well, it all depends. First of all, I cannot wait to watch Freaky. I just can't wait. I'm very, very excited to see it, so we'll have to see what happens. Like right now, I can't go to a movie theater, but I am looking forward to it. I've been excited ever since I saw the trailer. And Blumhouse, yeah, they've literally been, I got this idea for a movie. Give me a second. And then Jason Blum goes to his couch and starts digging around the couch, pulls out a couple of $1 bills, maybe a $5, a couple of quarters. He goes, okay, here you go. Go make a movie with this. They make movies for so inexpensive. That Invisible Man movie, if I'm not mistaken, they made it for $7 million. You heard that right. They made that movie for like $7, maybe $8 million. They made Invisible Man for. That's crazy. And they just seem to have that touch, Pedro. They just seem to have that touch. All right, Frankie Gouge writes, I may have missed this, and you may have already talked about, several months ago, Michael Hogan, Colonel Ty from Battlestar Galactica was severely injured in a fall. Even if you have, this is a reminder to people to donate to his GoFundMe page. He is in need. As you know, Canadian TV actors don't make a ton of money, and he really needs the help. Yeah, we did mention this when it first happened. So my all-time favorite show, Battlestar Galactica, Michael Hogan, who plays Adama's right-hand man, Colonel Ty, he had a fall, and if I remember correctly, like banged his head rather badly, and is suffering ongoing health issues as a result. I know a lot of people who are movie fans have this assumption in their head that anybody who's in a movie or TV show must be rich. They're not, and he's not. And you know, it was great when I went to go see one of the final movies I got to see in theaters. Not the absolute last one I saw, but one of the final 5 or 6 movies I got to see in theaters before everything shut down was Sonic the Hedgehog. And it was so neat. For those of you who've seen Sonic the Hedgehog, there's that scene near the beginning in the first act of the film after Sonic blows out the power grid, and the scene cuts to the Pentagon, and there's all these military leaders sitting around a table. Colonel Ty, Michael Hogan, is one of those guys sitting there. You can't be talking about that freak. Right? That was him. It was so cool to see him pop up in there. Anyway, thanks for the reminder about that, Frankie. All right. Berserker Rage writes. Where are we at here? Berserker Rage writes. Hey, John, long time, big fan since the Red Curtain days. Thank you so much, Berserker Rage. Miss the old crew of Schnepp, Eisenbach, Zen, and yourself. When do you think is the breaking point for when Hollywood studios have to release their big movies for movie theaters to survive? Thanks. I mean, that's the $1 billion question. It's close. It's close. It is going to be, if this was a movie, it would be a nail-biting race to the finish line right now, because we've got, everything seems darkest right now. The pandemic is spiking like crazy because people in America don't seem to want to take it seriously. So the pandemic right now is having record number spikes right now. Like, we're getting over 1 million people in less than 10 days of new cases. Of over 1,000 people a day are dying from it. Anyway, so we're in the darkest days of it. Yet now there's hope. It's like you've written a script for a movie. You're in the darkest days for the hero. Everything looks absolute darkest, but there is this ray of hope. We've got these vaccines on the horizon, and it looks like it's going to be a race to the finish line. Can the theaters hold out to when the vaccine comes out? And by the way, they don't need to wait for everybody to get vaccinated. The way disease spreads, if you can just get a good chunk, 30% of the population vaccinated, you've dealt a really serious blow to the pandemic, like a serious blow to the pandemic. Because now those are 30 million people that not only won't catch it, but they themselves do not become transmitters. See, pandemics, their power doesn't lie in getting people sick. The power of a pandemic is turning people into spreaders, right? That's the power of a pandemic. It turns people into spreaders. And if you all of a sudden take 30 million people out of that equation, that stunts. It doesn't completely wipe out, but it stunts the pandemic. So fingers crossed. So it's going to be close though, man. It's going to be close. It's going to be a race to the finish, and I don't know which way it's going to go, but it's going to be close. Anyway, Ant writes, watch Boogie Nights for the first time. Nice. Speaking of Burt Reynolds, Tard Ferguson. I had always thought, for no good reason, that it was about a nightclub. Well, no, hey, listen. Boogie Nights, you look at the poster, it does kind of look like a movie about a nightclub. It's not. It's about the porn industry. Anyway, for no good reason that it was about a nightclub. I was wrong. Fun film until the timeline gets to the 80s. Then it gets a little rough. The drug deal scene was effing nuts. Yeah, it gets kind of dark. It gets kind of dark. But it's like the movie that kind of put Burt Reynolds back in the limelight, because Burt Reynolds had kind of been out of the main spotlight for a while until that came around. Marky Mark and his Funky Bunch, I mean, it was a big step up for him. It's the movie that really introduced the world to Heather Graham, who went on to have a pretty respectable career. It's a great movie. Philip Seymour Hoffman was in that. And yeah, and of course, I remember when I watched it, for those of you who have seen Boogie Nights, I remember when I watched it, there's that part where Mark Wahlberg's character tries to become a singer and a rock star, and he's in the studio singing a song. And what is he singing? He's singing that song from Transformers, the animated movie, right? That's all I remembered. You've got the touch. You've got the power. And I'm like, how dare you take that song from Transformers? How dare you take that song from Transformers? Anyway, is what it is. All right, next up, Gabriel writes, how do you think marketing campaigns that have already released a lot of footage, 007, Black Widow, Fast 9, etc., will be able to make new exciting trailers without using new footage that might spoil elements they wanted to keep from the audience? Stay safe. Oh, they're going to have no problem. They're going to have no problem. You put out a new trailer, you include like 40% of stuff you've already used in other trailers. You got 2 hours of content that you just have to pull about a minute worth of content into a trailer for. Not going to be an issue. I mean, look, it's not like The Amazing Spider-Man 2, where they put out like 40 different TV spots and like 7 different trailers. And they ultimately ended up showing about, just in trailers and commercials, they showed, I think the final number was like 48 minutes of the movie was actually, somebody did a study on it, and I can't remember the exact numbers. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think somebody did a little bit of a study of that movie. And like at the end of the day, when you take all the footage that is revealed in the TV spots and the trailers, it ended up being like 40 plus minutes of the movie was already revealed. Most things you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about that. So they got lots to work with. It won't be a problem for them. All right, next up. Thanks for asking that, Gabriel. Next up. I've been better, writes. I like that username. Have you heard that Wentworth Miller is said to quit Prison Break because he feels that the story of straight men have been told and retold so many times? He wants to focus on telling stories of gay men as an actor from now on. I'm gay, and I like this idea. Yeah, so Wentworth Miller, not only from Prison Break, he played Captain Cold in the Flash series and in the CW, and then, of course, he went on to be on one of the founding members of Legends of Tomorrow. So he is a gay man, the actor. And yeah, he just said, look, I'm not going to come back, because there's been talks about them doing a Prison Break movie or revisiting Prison Break. And Wentworth Miller just recently got on social media and said, hey, look, just so everybody knows, so it's not a surprise later, I am not going to participate in a Prison Break relaunch. And his reasoning that he said in there is like, look, I'm not interested in playing straight characters anymore. I'm just personally interested. As a gay man, he says, I'm just interested in playing gay characters. I want to tell the stories of gay characters. And listen, I've got no problem with that. Like, look, if an actor doesn't want to play, I don't know, a 17th century British politician, okay, for whatever reason you don't want to do that, that's fine. He just said, I don't want to play straight characters anymore. I just want to dedicate the rest of my career to telling gay stories. And as a gay character, or as a gay man, I should say, yeah, I got no problem with that. That works. Good on him. Listen, he's already had a successful career. He's had 2 successful shows to his credit. And he's probably got all the money he needs for the rest of his life. Not super rich, but I'm sure he's well off. And if he's in a position right now where he's like, yeah, this is kind of important to me. I want to play characters that are more like me right now. I've played straight characters, but now I want to play gay characters. If that's what he wants. Now, it's important to note what Wentworth Miller did not say was that I think any gay actors out there should only play gay characters. How dare you not play a gay character? You're not proud of being gay, blah, blah, blah. He didn't say that. All he said is like, look, I don't want to play straight characters anymore. I've done it a lot. I'm done with that. I want to use the rest of my career to tell these stories. And there's nothing wrong with that. Now, I would have taken issue with it if he said gay actors should never be allowed to play straight characters. Straight actors should never be allowed to play gay characters. And, you know, everybody should just be segregated that way. Blah, blah. If he had said that, I would have taken issue. But just saying, for myself, for my career and where I want to go and how I want to tell stories now, I want to do these types of stories for me. I got no problem with that. I think that's perfectly fine. So that, I was never the biggest fan of Prison Break anyway. It's a good show, but I was never the biggest fan of it anyway. So it's all good to me. All right, next up. Casper writes, hello, John. I'm currently working on a presentation for business class on why it's not financially viable to put big Hollywood films such as Black Widow on Disney Plus, etc. And my question is the following. Does the 90-day theatrical window include streaming services, or do the studios need to wait even longer to release the films there? Thank you. The best of my understanding, Casper, is that the theatrical window as it currently exists, and it could change a lot, but the theatrical window as it currently exists, means any kind of home video. But once the theatrical window's over, a distributor is free to do anything they want with those movies. If they want to sell it in Walmart, they can. If they want to sell it on the street corner, they can. If they want to put it on Disney Plus, they can. If they want to put it on Google Play, they can. If they want to sell it in Best Buy, they can. To my understanding, once that theatrical window is over, they can do whatever they want as far as home video distribution. So that is my understanding. Good question, though, Casper. All right, next up, James LH writes, hi, John. As a soccer fan, one of the interesting stories around to me is Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney and their takeover of Wrexham AFC in Wales. That's a soccer club. I am curious how much they know about football and English leagues, but it will be a fascinating... He just kind of left off of there, but it will be a fascinating. I guess you just mean it will be fascinating. Yeah. So Ryan Reynolds, I don't know if he got inspired by watching Ted Lasso on Apple, starring Jason Sudeikis, which, by the way, I mean, I'm not going to do it on my computer, but pour one out. My second favorite celebrity couple. I'm not going to lie to you guys. This bums me out. My second favorite celebrity couple is Jason Sudeikis and Olivia Wilde. I love that couple. My favorite is actually Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively. That's my favorite celebrity couple right now. But my second favorite that I've just adored has been Olivia Wilde and Jason Sudeikis. And pour one out. They just announced that they're splitting. No, I don't talk about TMZ shit or anything like that. But I'm not going to lie to you. My heart broke a little bit. I believe in love a little bit less today. Today, I believe in love just a little bit less. Yeah, I was really heartbroken about that. Anyway, I cannot help but wonder with the timing, if Ryan Reynolds, with his untold millions, he is the second highest paid actor in Hollywood right now. Good on you, Canadian kid. Now sitting on his big pile of money, was sitting around with Blake Lively one night, popped on Apple TV and decided to watch Ted Lasso and said, I could own a soccer club. Anyway, I just don't think the timing is coincidental. That Ted Lasso just finished his first season, everybody loves it, and then all of a sudden Ryan Reynolds is buying a soccer team in England. I just don't think that's a coincidence. So we'll see how that turns out. All right. James LH also writes, John, have you heard of the Agbo League? Agbo is the name of the Russo brothers production company. The Agbo League. It's the Russos and Marvel actors in a fantasy football league. Last year, Hemsworth won. This year, Team Reynolds and Team Simu Liu, who is starring in the upcoming Shang-Chi, and he also stars in Kim's Convenience, are leading. The trash-talking videos are fun. The recent one with Palm Clementif is good. I actually sat beside which one was it? I remember. I was at the Black Panther premiere, and Anne was with me with my date. Let me see if I can find this. Hold on a second. Palm Clementif. So I was at the Black Panther premiere, and Anne was there with me. And you have to understand, one of Anne's big celebrity crushes, this was hilarious. I got to tell you this story. One of Anne's big celebrity crushes. Palm plays Mantis in Guardians of the Galaxy. So we go in and we're sitting down. Just for those who don't know, this is Palm here. So I can bring that picture up. That's Palm Clementif out of the antennas and out of her Guardians of the Galaxy thing. So Anne and I go in and get our seats. And I'm actually sitting right beside Palm Clementif. And it's like I didn't know who she was at first. And because I don't think I'd ever seen a picture of her outside of her Mantis costume, right? So Anne has to lean over to me and she says, that's Palm Clementif. And I'm like, who? She goes, she plays Mantis in Guardians of the Galaxy. And I look at her, I was like, really? Like, I wasn't able to recognize her. But there I am sitting right beside her. Now, beside Anne, true story. beside Anne is, and I don't know if she's still, let me just check to see if I have this, because this is funny. Let's see, Anne, let me see if this is still there or not. So right beside Anne, oh, she does still have it up there. Okay, so right beside Anne, well, I've got Palm Clementif sitting on one side of me, and there's an empty seat beside Anne. There's a couple of empty seats beside Anne. And we're like, gee, I wonder who's going to sit there. Now, you got to understand, Anne loves Donald Glover. Loves Donald Glover. Like, she's obsessed with Community. She really is a big fan of Childish Gambino's music and all that kind of stuff. So big, big fan of Donald Glover, right? So, when you're at these world premieres, in the theater on the big screen before the movie starts, they play video, like the live stream of the red carpet outside. And so we're sitting in this theater watching people come in, and there's Donald Glover. Donald Glover showed up at the Black Panther premiere, and like, oh my gosh, Donald Glover here. And she goes, oh my gosh, imagine if he's sitting here beside me. Well, guess what? He came in and sat down beside her. He comes in and sits down in the seats right beside her. And I think Anne later got on Facebook or something and said, so Donald Glover sat beside me. I'm going to unofficially call it our first date. So anyway, that was that. I don't know why I just told that story. Oh yeah, Palm Clementif. So anyway, it was a fun story. Anne had a great night. And yeah, so there you go. That was fun. Okay, let's move on here. An anonymous viewer writes, hey, John and Rob. I have it on good authority that in the final scene of The Suicide Squad, Sly Stallone is revealed as the DCEU's new/old Batman, which will lead to a live-action version of The Dark Knight Returns. You read it here first. Listen, I remember a number of years ago. Let me see if I can look it up here. So a number of years ago, a couple of years ago, Stallone puts this picture out. This is just a couple of years ago. Him in his home gym, right? Sylvester Stallone was in his home gym. Now, Stallone is like, what? Hey, Google, how old is Sylvester Stallone? I think he's 72.
Sylvester Stallone is 74 years old.
74. Okay, so he's probably like 72 or 71 when this picture was taken, right? So, and I remember when I saw that picture, I can't remember. I was probably at Collider at the time. I was probably doing Collider Movie Talk at the time. And I remember bringing this up and saying, you know what? When I look at this picture, you know what I think of? The Dark Knight Returns. That's what I think of. I think of The Dark Knight Returns. Old man Batman, still busting ribs, breaking legs, all that kind of stuff. I thought, that's your guy. That's your guy right there. Anyway, yes, we're not going to see that, obviously, but I'm still very curious to see what he's going to be doing in Suicide Squad. All right, Ryan Lohner writes, Bryce Dallas Howard has confirmed the shot of the Razor Crest entering the atmosphere in the last episode is a deliberate reference to her father's film Apollo 13. Anyways, neat to see stuff like that. I completely agree. Completely agree. It's always cool, too, when you see, you know, an individual who's super talented at something, and then they have offspring that are also really talented in that something. Like, that's always really cool to see. And Howard to Howard, I think that's pretty cool. All right, Preston the Kryptonian writes, missed an anniversary yesterday. Home Alone turned 30. Look at what you did, you little jerk. I didn't realize. Is that the 30th anniversary of Home Alone? Holy crap. Unbelievable. Preston writes, it's also the 3rd anniversary of Justice League today. Really? Is today actually the 3rd? Is it the release anniversary of Justice League? That's fun. I got to look that up. You know what else today is the anniversary of? A buddy of mine texted me earlier this morning. I believe, if he's not wrong, today is the anniversary of the release of the original Star Wars The Holiday Special. A day that will go down in infamy. So, yes, several anniversaries to celebrate here today, Preston. Home Alone, Justice League, and the original Star Wars, The Holiday Special. All right, next up, Dan Ketchum writes, I don't think this new deal will make any difference. The theaters won't survive long enough to get to that point. Yes, we have a couple of vaccines approved, but with manufacturing and distribution, it will be mid 2021 before it impacts the pandemic. I disagree. And I was watching a news thing on this where they were talking to some infectious disease experts. And that's the thing. Look, do you want to get everybody immunized? Yes. But do you have to have everyone immunized to make a serious dent on the pandemic? No. You don't have to have everybody immunized to make a serious dent on the pandemic. Do you remember those models where they would show, okay, it was like 500 bouncy balls, like 500 balls. It was like what's the word I'm looking for? It not kinetic, but whatever. It's one of these models that gets things going. You can see how things would happen, right? It's got like 500 bouncing balls, and white balls were uninfected people. Red balls were infected people. And these balls would start going. And what would happen is the red ball, a contagious thing, like every third ball it would hit would then become a red ball too. Then every third ball it hit would become a red ball too. And within like 30 seconds, every ball was red. But then they replayed the model, but they had like 100 of the balls were stationary and didn't move. Now this was them making a point about people staying at home and not going out to parties and whatever. But when they took just 20%, 100 of the 500 balls, and froze them in place so they didn't move, and all the other ones continued to move, the spread of the red was infinitely slower. Like it was a much slow. It took way longer to get all the other balls that were moving thing. I think like the same principle is going to be there. If you take like, they're saying they could have like 30 million doses ready by the end of the year. That's like within a month and a half. If, and this is a big if, I'm talking about theoreticals here, but if you could say like by the beginning of January, have like 30 million people immunized, again, that's not just 30 million people who themselves won't catch the disease. That's 30 million less spreaders. That's huge. So I honestly don't think we would have to wait until like the entire country to be immunized to see major impact. I think it could be much, much sooner. Will it be much sooner? I can't say, but I think it could. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. And again, I am no medical expert. This is just me going watching what people are saying. But anyway, you raise a good point there, Dan. All right. Russell Amador writes, hey, John, I'm hopeful that Regal doesn't get on board with this exclusive deals with studios nonsense. There will be better days ahead, and hopefully they realize the value of a longer theatrical window once a sense of normalcy comes back. Cheers to 2021. That is the hope, Russell. I agree with you 100%. That is the hope. The hope is that Regal stands their ground, that other studios stand their ground. It's just, once Universal made that, the Universal deal with AMC ultimately is meaningless on its own. Once Cinemark signs up for it too, that makes it a much bigger deal. And it's going to be much harder now for Regal to stand their ground. And it's going to be harder now for other studios like Universal or Warner Brothers or Paramount or what have you to also stand their ground. So I don't know. But if they do, I agree. There could be much, much brighter days ahead for the movie-going experience. But I just don't know. I just don't know, man. It doesn't look good. So we'll see. We will see. Here's hoping you're right about that. All right. Born and raised Hawaiian writes, hear me out. In my opinion, the most underrated film is 13th Warrior. I do not like 13th Warrior at all. Action, character, story, suspense. I don't believe it had any of that, but that's just me. Main character played by Aunt V. Aunt V is a Muslim man who is sophisticated and thrown into the middle of an adventure with Vikings who are portrayed as barbaric. Your review of film, please. I really don't like the film. Now, listen, I'm not saying that everybody I know hates it. No, I know a number of people who actually quite like 13th Warrior. I have a couple of my friends who very, very much like 13th Warrior. Actually, I still remember back at AMC, I think a bunch of us were sitting around having lunch, and I think 13th Warrior, we were sitting having lunch at Gordon Biersch. That was the name of a restaurant. We were sitting around having lunch at Gordon Biersch. I think there was like 7 or 8 of us. And I remember 13th Warrior came up, And it was about split 50-50. Like half of us at the table absolutely hated that movie, and about half of the people there absolutely loved it. So it is kind of torn. But you know what, Born and Raised, that's good on you, because that's what an underrated movie is supposed to mean. It's supposed to mean, hey, a movie that I think a lot of people don't like, but I actually think it's really good. That's the definition of underrated. You know, I think Man of Steel is horrifically underrated because a lot of people dislike it. It's all good. But the important thing is you like the movie. That's the most important thing. And I'm glad you got something out of it, because I didn't, unfortunately. All right, next up. An anonymous viewer writes, "Hey, John. So much for no theaters having new movies to release. The other day, I drove an hour away to an AMC theater to see Vince Vaughn's movie Freaky, and it was a total blast. Have you had a chance to see it? And is this good news for theaters?" Well, no, I haven't had a chance to see it because, like I said, if it was playing in the movie theaters right up the street from me, I would maybe go. As it is, I have to drive about an hour to go to a movie theater that's open. For me to drive 2 hours round trip, it needs to be a movie I'm pretty invested in wanting to watch, like really invested in wanting to watch. And maybe Freaky is that. But like I said on my show the other day, while I have gone to the movie theaters twice during the pandemic, once in Las Vegas and once in Orange County, and both experiences were very, very good. Like I felt way safer with their safety protocols. I felt way more secure in that movie theater than I do going to my local grocery store. And my local grocery store does a good job, but I felt way more secure and comfortable and safe in that movie theater with their safety protocols than I did in a grocery store. That being said, I can't ignore the fact that the spikes in the pandemic right now, none of which have ever been attributed to any movie theater going, by the way. That should be pointed out. There's been no study that suggests any new spreads have started at movie theaters. That's an important thing to note. But still, with the massive, massive spikes of like 150,000 new cases a day now, Ann and I just decided it's so bad right now. We are going to limit going out to indoor places a little bit more than normal. Obviously, we'll still go to the grocery store because we need to, but we decided probably not going to make until we see a little bit of subsiding in the pandemic. We're probably not going to go back to the movie theaters, especially since it's an hour away. So I've not had the chance to see it yet. And by the way, that's not me calling for movie theaters to shut down. That's just me making a personal choice for me. But no, I haven't had a chance to see it, but I very, very much do want to see it. And I'm looking forward to being able to watch it. Okay. Next up, Cameron Mann writes, "I just watched the trailer for Pieces of a Woman starring Shia LaBeouf." I heard about this, and Vanessa Kirby. It tells the story of a couple who undergo the loss of a child. It looks incredible and was first screened at the Toronto International Film Festival. Have you guys seen it? No, I have not watched it yet. But listen, Shia LaBeouf is actually on a real roll. He's on a real roll. He put out like a couple of fabulous movies last year. And again, listen, he may be a few crackers short of a full box, but Shia is an amazing actor. You cannot take that away from him. He is an amazing actor. And I know I will be interested in this. So I haven't seen the trailer yet, but I am very interested in it. Thanks for bringing that one up, Cameron, putting that on everybody's radar. Good on you. All right, anonymous viewer writes, "I live in New York City, and it's just so annoying that there's no theaters open. If I go elsewhere, it's at least an hour drive with traffic to any decent theater. Not to mention there are so little new movies out." I know, it's been so frustrating, man. I remember it wasn't all that long ago when it had been like 6 months since I've been in a movie theater, and they had just opened movie theaters. The closest movie theater open to me was Nevada, Las Vegas. And New Mutants was coming out. And me and my buddy Soul, we got in the car, drove 4 hours to Vegas, 3.5, 4 hours to Vegas, watched New Mutants, turned around, drove 3.5 to 4 hours back home. I spent like 9 hours, eight hours in a car to go and see New Mutants. That's how badly I want to go back and see a movie again. Yeah, it has been, man, this for movie going, just talking about movie going here, it has been the worst year in history. It has been a rough year to be a film fan. Obviously much rougher for many, many other reasons, but we're just talking about the world of movies here. So I'm just keep that in context. I'm aware there are bigger problems, obviously. I'm just saying, but we're here to talk about the movies. And it has been the worst year ever for, if you're a movie fan, just the worst. Okay, next up, Murray Reich writes, who do you think will end up winning the NFC East? God, what a joke the NFC East is. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, the NFC East is one of the divisions in football, and it can traditionally be very strong. It's got some very reputable historic teams. You got the New York Giants. You got the Washington Football Club, formerly known as the Washington Redskins. You got the, who did I say already? You got Philadelphia Eagles, New York Giants, Dallas, and Washington. Okay. Those are the 4 teams in the NFC East. Traditionally strong teams. You got Super Bowl winning teams in there and all that kind of stuff. That division sucks. Right now, the first place team in that division is 3-5. 3-5. 2 games under 500 is the best record in that division. It's a joke. That whole division's a joke. And don't give me, the Cowboys would be better if Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott's great, but they were sucking and losing even with Dak Prescott. So that's not going to fix anything. After this past weekend, I am all out of Philadelphia Eagles. When the season started, I thought the Eagles will turn it around. I've seen no signs of them turning it around. They are as bad as their record says they are right now. I never would have thought this at the beginning. I think the only team in the NFC East that is actually a little bit better than their record might suggest, and just by a little bit, is actually the New York Football Giants. I hate the Giants, but I think they're the best team in that division right now. And so, and you know what? Washington looked good under Alex Smith, even though they lost that game. But my $5 prediction here is that the Jets end up winning the NFC East, but it's going to be a total joke show. It's a travesty of justice that one of those teams gets into the playoffs just because they're going to win that horrible division. Anyway, Wyatt Bender writes, I find it amazing that video games have become more cinematic. In example, Spider-Man PS4 and the new Miles Morales game. Every time I play these games, it feels like you play and then it transitions to a clip flawlessly. It's like an interactive movie. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know that Spider-Man was the best example of that. Spider-Man's definitely good, but Last of Us is, I think, the crown jewel of that. Also, God of War, the recent God of War, is a really great example of that. Still, for the most part, they're great for games. They don't compare to movies to me because that's not the primary focus. But a couple of them, there are a couple of exceptions. Red Dead Redemption, God of War, Last of Us. These ones that are really good. I don't know that Spider-Man is, but Spider-Man is incredibly fun. I mean, it's a great game. That's what it is. But that's just my take on it. All right. Stubble McShave writes, I haven't had a chance to play the Miles Morales one yet, just so you know. Stubble McShave writes, Spike Lee Viagra musical. That sounds like something right up your alley. I've got a stiffy. Come on, everybody's going to be singing it. You know, it's going to be the big hit song. Not giving away my shot. Forget that. It's going to be I've got a stiffy. That's going to be the new one that sweeps America, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be the one that sweeps America. All right, next up, we've got Gabriel Orama. Gabriel Orama, who tips in $25. Thank you so much, Gabriel, for supporting the channel on that level, man. Really appreciate that, dude. All right, Gabriel writes, hey, John. Given all the drama behind Gina Carano and her controversial social media posts, which ended up creating the hashtag #FireGinaCarano hashtag, do you think Disney will kill off Cara Dune, recast her, or do nothing in regards to The Mandalorian? Cheers. All right. There is often a difference in hypothetical questions about what will somebody or a studio do versus what do I think a studio or individual should do. There is often a big difference between what I think a studio should do versus what I think they will do. Those are often two different things. In this case, I think it's actually the same. I think what they will do and what they should do is actually the same thing. And that is nothing. They should do nothing. And I don't think they will do anything. And nor do I think they should. You see the circular reasoning there? I don't think they should do anything. I don't think they will do anything. I think they're going to play the Cara Dune character out to whatever they were going to do. If the Cara Dune character dies at the end of this season, and I'm not saying she does, but if she does, it's because they were planning on doing that anyway, and it will have nothing to do with this controversy. If they keep her alive for the next couple of seasons, it'll because that's what they planned on doing. It'll have nothing to do with the fact that they support her position on things. Look, my position on this is very clear. I don't give a hot damn what somebody's personal, political or worldview thoughts are. As long as they're not, hey, let's go out and beat up gay people. Somebody's personal opinions about, certain issues, I can agree or disagree with their opinions on certain issues, but it doesn't affect nor should it affect whether or not we think that person should be able to star in this or be that or whatever. That's just my opinion. That's just my opinion. Somebody who believes that, you know what? The state disaster relief package should be $2 billion. And you think the state disaster relief package should only be $500 million? I never want to see you work again. It's unless it becomes paramount to, the call of active violence against other people. I really don't care. Now, look, I don't like getting political on the show, but let's just say I have very different political views than, say, Clint Eastwood does. But it doesn't stop me from absolutely revering Clint Eastwood's work. Clint Eastwood is one of the best filmmakers of all time, one of the iconic film actors of all time. And he and I got some different political points of view. And okay, that's fine. I don't think they should not let Clint Eastwood. Look, somebody's opinion about something, I don't know, unless it's an extreme example, somebody's opinion about something generally will not prevent me from appreciating or liking the work. It has to be far more extreme than that. And look, I'm not defending Gina Carano. I'm not attacking Gina Carano. I don't care what she thinks or what she says on Twitter. I really don't. She, again, if we're talking about just, opinions on things, her opinion on certain issues, I believe should have no impact on whether a studio allows that person to work in a property or not, especially if they're already working on a property. Now, I'm sure there are going to be people who are already drafting tweets to me saying, well, John, what about somebody who does this? And it's like some real big extreme example, but I'm not talking about extremes. Now, it's somebody who's, look, I've got an opinion on this issue. It's not the popular opinion, and they state what their opinion is. Okay, I can agree or disagree with you. I can think you're stupid. I can think all that kind of stuff, but it's not going to affect whether or not I think you should be allowed to have your job. I don't know. And there's a million variables in there. Admittedly, there are a million possible variables in that, but just generally speaking, I don't think somebody having a different, and in Gina's case, wrong opinion about an issue will affect how I appreciate her work or whether she'd be allowed to have a job. Again, there are extreme examples you can throw out there. Those are different discussions. For something like this, that's what I personally think, at any rate. Okay, next up, Wyatt Bender writes, I started writing my first film script in 2015, and I am still writing it. Hey, listen, there are stories of people who write scripts for decades, so don't feel bad about that. It is a modern Western with Tarantino's type action and Sergio Leone type of dialogue. This has been my passion project for 5 years. It's been a dream to make my own film. And hey, listen, just keep writing it, but just understand this. Understand this. And I tell you this not to discourage you, but to prevent you from getting discouraged. Writing your first script is much like the first time you have sex. You probably suck at it, dude. Right? The first thing you do is going to be the worst thing you do. Yeah, I was just listening to somebody talk about the new Mac. I've been talking a lot about the new Macs with the M1 chips in it that are blowing everybody's minds. But I heard this great tech blogger today say, understand these Mac M1 chips are going to be the worst Mac Silicon processors ever. I mean, they're still amazing. They're mind-blowing, but they're going to be the worst ones ever. Just remember that your first script is probably going to be the worst script you ever write. I tell you that, so if you look back on it a little bit later and think this isn't all that good, or if somebody gives you not the best feedback on it, don't be discouraged. It's your first one, right? And like, as much as anybody likes to brush, like pat themselves on the back, guess what? Maybe your partner didn't tell you, but the first time you had sex, you probably sucked. You probably sucked. They just didn't have the heart to tell you otherwise. It's the first time, right? So good on you. You've already done more than 99% of people do, which is actually do it. So good on you for that. That's awesome. Just don't be discouraged. Keep writing, keep going. If it doesn't work out with your first script, guess what? Your next one isn't going to take 5 years to write. Now you've done it. You've got that experience. You know some things that work and some things don't. And your next one's going to be even better. So that's my encouragement to you, my friend. That's my encouragement to you. All right, next up. Marie Seifring writes, I love the podcast version of the show too. Oh, thank you so much for that, Marie. You know what? That gives me an excuse here to plug this quick. Hold on a second. Let me just bring this up here quick. So for those of you who do not know, the John Campea Show is also up on podcast only version. You can go and subscribe to it on your favorite podcasting app of choice. Just go to your podcasting app of choice and search for the John Campea Show podcast. You should be able to follow it, find it no problem. And by the way, you see down here, we've got this here too. We now have an exclusive thing. This thing right here. See right here where this part is moving? Open Mic. Open Mic is now a podcast only, and it's exclusive to the podcast feed. And once or twice a week, we do Open Mic podcasts where our Patreon supporters send in the questions, and we answer all those in the Open Mic. And those are exclusive to the podcast feed. So even if you watch the YouTube channel regularly, go and subscribe to the podcast feed because there is some extra stuff in there for you as well. Anyway, Marie, thank you so much for the plug on that. And I appreciate that very much. All right. There's only a few questions left, but we're almost out of time here. So final question of the day. Aaron Schroederer writes, the Transformers story got me thinking. Some studios don't care enough about the screenwriting part of filmmaking when it comes to franchises. They get these writers for hire to write a script that checks off specific boxes for specific demographics. Well, they continue on. They don't really care about the minutia of the screenplay. That's why writers with spotty resumes keep getting hired for big film projects. Here's the problem with what you're suggesting, Aaron. Here's the problem with what you're suggesting. Number one, you don't know that because you're not in the room. I'm not in the room either. Studios know that the better the movie is, the more money they make. Studios are greedy. Trust in their greed. I say that, but to quote Michael Douglas in Wall Street, greed is good, greed works. Trust in studios' greed. Studios are going to try to make the best movie they can out of their property. Like they'll have an idea about what can make them a lot of money, but they know that the better that movie is, the more repeat business they'll get, the more word of mouth it'll get. They'll make more money if they make it as good as they can. Remember, they had 2 different writers write scripts for this, and they felt that the best script was Joby's script. That's what they felt was the best one. See, it's easy for us as film fans who are not in the room to say, this is what studios do. It's like, come on, man. You've never been in the studio execs' offices as these decisions are being made, and you don't know that. That's just something we've made up and has kind of become a common myth. And does it happen sometimes? Well, I'm sure it does. I'm sure it happens sometimes. But for the most part, even those movies that I hate and detest, I know that they tried to make something good. See, film fans, and I'm guilty of this too, all of us, film fans, one of our big weaknesses is that we seem to have this belief that making a good movie is easy. And when a studio makes a bad movie, they just didn't try. And maybe there are isolated examples of that. But for the most part, that is simply not true. Almost every bad movie you and I have seen, there's a lot of filmmakers and executives and producers that really did try to make a great movie. And they thought they had a great movie on their hands. And it ended up being terrible. Because it's really hard to make a good movie. You know, I'm getting ready to release my own little documentary. I like it. I find it very interesting. But all I can do is hope that other people do too. And if people watch my movie, by the way, plug. Movie trailers, a love story. Official selection of things like the Studio City International Film Festival, best documentary finalist for the Portland Film Festival, all that kind of stuff. I'm announcing a release date this week, guys. Just so you know, this week I will be announcing a release date for the movie. At any rate, I just hope that if, some of you guys watch it, and I'm hoping all of you watch it, please God, all of you rent it and watch it. Anyway, my only hope is that if some of you watch it and you don't find it interesting and you don't find it engaging, all I can hope is that you don't then dismiss me and think, oh, Campea didn't even try to make it good. Oh, I tried. Believe me, I've spent a year. I've just spent a year of my life trying my best. And maybe my best will be awesome. And maybe my best won't be good enough. And I can live with that. I just really hope that, out of the millions of people who watch this movie and love it, I just hope that those who don't automatically think Campea didn't try, he didn't bother, blah, blah, blah. No, believe me, I tried. I put my heart and my soul and countless hours and countless months for a year, like giving up a lot of other things in my life to make this movie. And if I'm doing that, if this fucking nobody loser on YouTube is doing that, that these people who actually have millions and tens and hundreds of millions of dollars on the line, they're trying too. They're trying. Sometimes it'll work. Sometimes it won't. But I think for the most part, we got to give them the benefit of the doubt. Now, I am like you, Aaron. I am a little... I got to tell you, I am a little concerned, a little worried, a little hesitant about their choice of screenwriter, but they did have multiple scripts written and they decided this was the best one. I mean, what did the Russo... I didn't particularly like a lot of the Russo. The Russo brothers made You, Me, and Dupree before they got to do Captain America, Winter Soldier. They did You, Me, and Dupree. Bad movie. But that didn't mean they weren't capable of doing something much better. Have I really loved Joby's work so far? Like I said, I'm the only person in the world that liked his King Arthur movie, but that doesn't mean he's not capable of maybe cranking out a script that is fantastic. Maybe that's what Paramount saw. But here's the thing. If it turns out to be awful, I'm not for a second going to think it's because they didn't care or they didn't worry about it. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's a struggle and a debate that we film fans will have forever. We will always have this discussion. And my friend, it is a discussion worth happening. All right, guys, that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. For the couple of questions we had left, do not worry. On tomorrow's show, we will start off the live questions part of the show with yours that we didn't get around to here. So you sent them in. Don't worry. It's going to get answered properly on the show. So we'll get to those things first up tomorrow. Guys, thank you so much for being here and making this show a part of your day. I am totally cognizant of what an honor it is that you guys would choose to spend part of your day here with me as we talk about these really fun things. Guys, special thank you to all of you guys who did send in those live questions because, number one, you gave us great fun things to talk about, but number two, you supported this channel while you did it, and all of us involved here with the YouTube channel here, thank you guys so much for that support. Guys, please remember to do the four main things. Stay smart, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and please take care of the people around you. That'll do it for me for now, guys. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, I've got a stiffy.